Welcome to NATA's Legislative Real Talk, where we talk about how events in Washington affect your aviation businesses. I'm your host, Ryan Wagasback, Senior Vice President with the National Air Transportation Association. And today I'm joined by NATA's President and CEO, Tim Obitts. Tim, welcome.
Glad to be here.
So, Tim, I have heard, and we've been hearing this for some time, from you and from others, sustainability is here to stay. Is it real? Is it true?
Yes, it's true. It's real.
And is it really real because of this new administration shift?
It's real because of social trends in society, but it's really real because of the new administration and their 100-day goals of dealing with sustainability.
So, new appointees in the Biden administration affects what is that going to do?
So we'll take you back. So after Biden was elected, prior to taking his oath of office, we had a couple meetings with the Biden transition team, and at the core, what they want to talk about was the issue of sustainability, and in particular, sustainable aviation fuel. And since then, we've had multiple meetings with both the FAA and Department of Transportation, including a meeting with Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Very interesting. So we're still in the 100-day period.
We're still in the 100-day period, and obviously this administration has made very clear that sustainability is important. They renewed the commitment to the Paris Climate Agreement. They introduced the Clean Futures Act just last week, in the first week of March, and they just keep moving forward with the issue of sustainability. And from my friends on the inside of the administration, they're talking about sustainability at all the agencies. How do we reduce our global greenhouse emissions? How do we make an impact? And it's interesting in our conversations with them that we remind them of the fact that we are 0.04 of 1% of man-made carbon emissions, but we still are trying to be proactive in doing our part of reducing that 0.04 of 1%. Because when we look at the Paris Climate Accords, it's aspirational to reach the U.S. to do a reduction of 20 to 25%. And obviously, we're 0.04 of 1%.
So by us getting back into the Paris Climate Accord, correct? The effect on the FBOs and operators is simply we have to reduce.
Right. We have to either do it ourselves or we're going to be forced to do it. And so we've been preaching this for a while, and I've been preaching this for a while, sometimes to raise eyebrows, but talking about the fact that we need to be proactive, to tell our story, and to do it. Otherwise, it's going to be mandated upon us.
And so I'm an FBO. How do I get ahead of the curve?
There's a couple things you can do. One, the easiest one is talk with your fuel supplier about sustainable aviation fuel, about book and claim, about renewable diesel, and work with them on trying to create a program. We're here to help you as well. We've worked with many FBOs and chains dealing with the issue of how do we meet a sustainability goal for reduction of greenhouse emissions, and how do we go along that way? To that end, NATA has an environment committee. We've got experts on there that are willing and ready to help. But the first step, like I said, is talk to your fuel supplier. They're there. They've got programs for you, and they make a difference.
So this reduction in our carbon footprint, when do we need to achieve this by?
If we're looking at the Paris Climate Agreement, we're talking about 2025. So we're talking about a reduction based upon levels from 2019, 2020, I think the time frame, to be pegged there, and then a reduction. And so the question is, can we do this as the industry ourselves? Well, the part of the issue right now is that we don't have much of a supply of sustainable aviation fuel. And I spend a lot of my time working on trying to facilitate and poke and prod people along so that we will create a supply. We've created the demand. The Sustainable Aviation Business Aviation Fuel Coalition that NATA was a co-founder of with Gamma and NBAA and with the EBA and IBAC. And it's been a privilege of mine to chair that since its inception. But the goal once now is, okay, how do we get sustainable aviation fuel available? Because there's not a lot of it made.
So that is the issue. We've got the demand, but how do we get it to you? And that's where book and claim comes in?
Well, no, book and claim is helpful, but that's where we are working at a national level on something called a blender's tax credit. And we've got some legislation that should be introduced here momentarily that would put SAF production and the incentives behind it on par with renewable diesel. Because we have plenty of renewable diesel, and renewable diesel, as you know, is very similar to kerosene. You just need one more step in the process, in the distillation process, to create Jet A. And so we can then turn that spigot on and have an infusion of sustainable aviation fuel in the market so that it makes sense.
So if I'm a 135 operator, what advice do you have for me looking ahead at what's kind of coming down from DC?
The key thing that a Part 135 operator could do is, once again, talk to their contract fuel supplier if they've got an arrangement, or if they've got an arrangement with some FBOs, to talk with them about what they can do to help them reach their own sustainability goals for reduction of greenhouse emissions.
So in regards to what NATA is doing and our advocacy and working collaboratively, like you mentioned our environmental committee.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's divided up amongst a couple things. Obviously, one is sustainable aviation fuel. The other aspects of the environmental committee have a working group to work on renewable diesel. Like I said before, renewable diesel is here. It makes a difference, and it would help at airports. And we've got refueler trucks and other equipment that runs upon diesel. So why not make it renewable diesel and make a difference? And it makes economic sense to do so. So we're working on education materials to how to propagate the use of that. We're also working on carbon offsets. Now, to be clear, you want to reduce your emissions through the activity itself. That's why SAF and renewable diesel are so important. But the remainder of your activity that you're not able to actually reduce through your activity, you can reduce through carbon offset programs.
Now, that's not going out and paying a random third party to go plant trees, or is it?
There are all different types of carbon offsets program, and not all of them are the same. So once again, this is sort of my mantra, is talk with your fuel supplier, because they have carbon offset programs to help you.
And they have vetted they vetted those companies, because I'm sure there's a lot of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The answer is yes. They certainly have.
Well, this has been good. No, this has been very informative and truly educational. So I really appreciate your time today going through this, and look forward to having more discussions on this in the near future.
I appreciate it, Ryan.